If your goal is to be a successful private and hard money lender, there are a number of skills you're going to need, and they don't happen all at once. It takes time to learn them step by step. We're going to dive in right now.
Welcome to the Private Lenders Podcast with your host from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Bailin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for checking out the show. We appreciate it. One thing to mention, kind of last minute, in a couple of weeks, we're having an event here in June in Maryland, our annual summer event, and we're almost full. We're almost full. We're just working on the itinerary. We could have a spot or two left. If you're interested, go to hardmoneymastermind.com, click on live events, and schedule a time to talk to Dave Bauer, our program director. Could have one or two spots left. We'll see by the time this releases. All right, let's talk about stacking skills. If you want to end up being a private lender and real estate investor and everything else that a lot of us are into, there's a lot of foundational skills to go into that, right? And I remember at the very beginning of my career when I started at SunTrust Bank doing mortgage loans right out of college, still living in my parents' house. And after work every day, I would read books. And this is before we started like buying courses and before a lot of the stuff became available in YouTube and everything else. I mean, it was before YouTube. And so I would read books about really basic stuff because that's where I was at the time. I was 22, maybe 23. And I would read books on personal finance. I would read books on sales. I was learning some really basic skills of real estate and lending at SunTrust. And I've said this a number of times on the podcast, but like that industry, that business was a really good business 101. Wasn't going to take us where we wanted to go ultimately, but it was an excellent place to start. So talking about some of those foundational skills, and we're going to go kind of in a progression here. The way I sketched it out, I think that, just really basic personal finance would be one. And then maybe like real estate 101 would be second.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to be into personal finance and how money works and want money. Like, I think that's important kind of at the beginning. Like, if this business doesn't interest you of compound interest and, making active, this is an active business, active income business and a passive income business. The active part of the business is doing deals every way and generating fees. And the passive side of this business is, putting your own capital to work and creating a return on that. And that's the beautiful part about this business is there's lots of different income streams, and we've done podcast episodes related to that. So wanting money, I think, is important. And then basic real estate and loan structures and mortgage structures important because we'll talk to members of the mastermind group. And, it's funny because some people like I don't want to say we were ever experts at either one of them. Like we had experience with both of them, right? We worked in banking, we worked in mortgage. We understood how the basic, HUD-1 settlement statement was set up, how loans are created, how loans are serviced. You close on, the middle of the month, your first payments not the next month. You skip a month and then it's the following month because interest accrues in arrears. Not everybody knows that. But that's part of the foundational side. And then, we owned a bunch of real estate. I don't want to say we were big experts in real estate, but like we'd flipped, a dozen houses and we owned a rental portfolio of about 30 properties. So like we had experience, but not a ton of experience of doing that, but enough to realize I don't really want to invest in real estate. It's hard work. I don't want to necessarily work at a mortgage company and just be an origination shop all day long. Like we want to mold the two, which hard money lending is absolutely great for. And when we work with some clients, some people in the mastermind group, it's funny because some of them come from the mortgage business, but they don't understand the creative real estate side of things. They just don't. They come from traditional mortgages and they don't understand the creativeness of like how to structure deals. Like, oh, you can do that? No, and they'll be like, wait a sec, you can't, you can't do this. You're not allowed to like be on a guarantor without being on the deed. Right. Like just little things like that,
Or else you can't sell a property without paying off the loan. It's like, well,
Yeah.
there's a kind of investing called subject to. Like there.
Yeah. like they don't fully, you know, and that's okay. Like they don't understand that because they're not accustomed to it. And on the other side, there's a lot of people that we know in the real estate world that don't fully understand mortgages and how to do that. They own a lot of stuff. I mean, we had someone we were working with, and again, like this was awkward to me at the time, but like looking back, I get it. Is you know his the way that he structured all his payments was it was 30 days from the date of closing. So if he closed whatever, May 20th, the first payment was due June 20th. That's just how it was structured because that's just
Right.
how his brain worked.
And a
And then
mortgage person would never do that.
a mortgage person would never do that. And I'm like, hey, you know that like as you grow this portfolio, you're gonna have monthly payments due every day of the damn month, nonstop, instead of just having it the first of the month. And he's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But like, I get it. How his brain worked on this. So the point is, some people have different foundations that have already built up and some don't. But again, like I do think the basics, like you said, was personal finance, basic real estate knowledge, basic loan structures, and you can kind of move on to some of the actual stuff that I think some people are scared about, marketing
Yeah, the building stuff.
and some people are really good at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it is like, fortunately it worked out in a good way because by the time we went to start HMB, even though we were in our 20s, it was a long time ago, we did have those foundational skills. We did go through some of that stuff. We knew how to do a loan. We knew how to underwrite real estate income. Like we just knew the mechanics of the transactions, like you were saying. So like fortunately, we were in a good spot. We were in a good spot to start a lending company and to do some responsible investment loans. But we were that doesn't necessarily mean that we had deals. So you got to stack on other skills. And so if you want deals, if you want lead flow, you got to learn marketing and sales. And again, we had a 101 knowledge of sales and marketing from being in business and real estate. We did. Fortunately, we both learned like actual sales training, formal sales training early on in our careers. It's been, carried forward to this day. Um, but okay, now we gotta get good at this stuff. We have the fundamentals to do deals. We have the skill set for that, but now we need to get the deals. And so we have to we didn't know we were becoming marketers, but we had to become marketers.
Yeah, no, good point. And as you were talking, I was thinking about um our team in general and like who's kind of had the most success working kind of in a lending company. And I feel like the ones that have not necessarily the sales, kind of the marketing and the sales background, at least for loan originators, has been the best. Because it's like, don't worry about this product that you're selling. It's not that hard. We can teach that. We can figure that out. So, and then a lot of times, somebody who has previous mortgage background, not necessarily real estate investing background, but mortgage background has bad habits. Mortgage brokers would have bad habits doing stuff because they think like a broker. They don't necessarily think like a lender. They think just with a sales hat, not a risk mitigation underwriter hat. Um, we've had a lot of back, we've had a lot of W-2 employees and bookkeeping and accounting and stuff like that. They're like, they didn't understand. They didn't know this business. They didn't need to know the business, right? We taught the business. The widget business is easy, right? It was just, hey, can you understand, the higher level thing? So I don't know. As you were talking, I was thinking about that because none of the only people we've ever had that kind of were in sales that knew the business weren't all that good at it. And the ones that have been really good at it did not know this business at all, and they didn't have any bad habits or preconceived notions, and they've been very, very good. So it's a learning lesson, if you're out there and you're trying to hire business development or something, having someone that understands sales and marketing, sometimes that's a different role, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're already generating in-house deals for them and they're just sales and you can find a killer salesperson, like that's a very good, you know, like forget like you don't need some of those other things ahead of this, unless you're actually the business owner in this.
All right. So moving on down the line, stacking some more skills. You get to a point where you're doing some deals and you have a portfolio and things are moving and you want to grow. You're not going to be able to do it all by yourself. Most people who come into the mastermind group end up hiring, or they already have plans to build a team. And now you're getting into yet another skill set because hiring, training, managing people might be something that's new to you, or maybe that isn't your background, right? So you came in with a certain skill set around doing that. But for those who haven't hired, trained, and managed, it's not the same skill set as being a good salesperson. It's not the same skill set as being an underwriter of a real estate deal, right?
Yeah.
And so if you want a team, you're going to have to get efficient or proficient at hiring, managing, training, team building.
Yeah, what's interesting to this is I think both of us, I know I did, I think you as well, like, we've had a lot of we haven't had a ton of overlap in employees over the years, but I mean, being in business for 20 years, there's a few folks that have come and gone and feel like, that
Yep.
was the one part of the business I really did not like. Um, but a good learning lesson is if you hire the right people up front and you spend a lot of time up front, it makes life way easier, way easier. And I think when you start out, it's challenging because the number one prerequisite is just how much are they going to cost, not anything else. So it's like, oh, I can get this person for, 35 grand or 40 grand. Like, cool, let's do it. Like, and then you just expect that it's just an easy button and they're just going to take over that particular task and that job. And that's just not the case. But
Yeah.
as we grew and we realized that and we hired more educated, more, smarter, higher paid people, it did make life way easier. And it was a scary thing doing that where I was like, I just want to be a business owner. I don't want to be that's what everybody says. I just want to be a business owner. I don't want to be,
I don't want to be a
um,
manager.
yeah, I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to do HR. I don't want to do any of those things. Well, guess what? All of these things we just talked about: personal finance, real estate, loan structure, marketing, sales, team building. Like that's part of it. That's what you signed up for. Um,
That is what you signed up for. Yeah, and, ours has evolved over the years too. Like, we did come into the business a bit saying, like, "Oh, we don't wanna be managers, like, we wanna be HR," but you don't really have a choice, and so if you're gonna do it, you might as well get good at it, and ours has evolved over the years. So, a handful of years ago, we had a lot everyone was in office full time. And we had a lot of, like, group activities outside the office. We were real big on our holiday parties. We had frequent lunches in here, oftentimes client lunches. We'd bring a chef in, and we'd all hang out. There's music and games and, like, putting contests. Like, we did a lot of the
Mhm.
face-to-face, in-office, team-type stuff, and that was cool at the time. It was very cool at the time. Things did change a little bit, mainly because the pandemic came through and, like, changed everyone's work schedule, and then everyone got used to and enjoyed the flexibility of working from the office sometimes, working from home sometimes. Everyone's set up to do that. Everyone's got busy family lives, kids, sports, vacations, all that stuff. And our team really enjoys the flexibility of being able to do it from here or from home or from vacation, right? So it has evolved over time. Technology's evolved over time. We all stay well connected and um but yeah, I mean, it's basically a hybrid setup, and we evolved with the time. Like, we didn't say like, "All right, we're gonna be this exact structure. It's always here 9 to 5 in office forever." Like, we evolved with everything else that was going on, and I think that was a wise move.
Yeah. And, so next kind of thing that we transitioned to as we kind of grew, and I think other experienced lenders have as well, is kind of more type of creative deal structures. Maybe you came in this business trying to do, a lot of people that are newer in this business are still just doing fix and flip loans. And I mean, there's only like a third of our portfolio that are fix and flip loans at this point. We're a third fix and flip, a third like kind of just bridge loan refinances on free and clear investment residential, and like a third commercial, give or take. But like we didn't know anything about commercial properties when we started in this business. It kind of scared us. Partially because the loan amounts were bigger, partially because it seemed super sophisticated, but like we transitioned into it slowly. Like we just did. Like we tried to figure out deals that were just the biggest home runs. We reached out to a lot of commercial lenders, a lot of commercial brokers, a lot of commercial investors. We even used capital for people that understood commercial just to kind of learn on it. And it's just like anything else. Like I've always felt like we've been good about being just very conservative at the beginning to ease into things. And when I say conservative, I mean like, hey, this guy's buying this property for $500,000. It's a 1-unit office building, and we're going to offer him $100,000. And then, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, well, he would never do that. It's like, okay, well, guess what? We're not a commercial lender at this point. And I don't even know if we're going to be a commercial lender, but we got a lead. So I'm going to tell them, hey, this isn't really what we do, but if you can accept $100,000, we consider it. And whatever, maybe the 100,000 turns into a $150,000 loan. And most people are going to say no to that. But you do that deal and it's like, okay, great. Where can you lose? Well, is there environmental issues? Okay, well, what vendors do environmental reports? Okay, let's do that. How do we figure out valuations? How do we do an income approach? So like we fumbled through doing this and trying to be as safe as possible, and then going to some of these other investors and be like, hey, listen, here's this whole deal. We're about to lend on it. If we took back this property, what would you buy this for? And they're like, oh man, it's a no brainer. I'd pay like, 400 grand for it. It's like, great, we're doing a loan of 150. So anyways, like that's how you learned. And then we invested, our own capital into equity deals and did some limited partnerships, and you learn that way as well. So again, some people, they might be coming from this. They might be commercial investors, and from the beginning, like they might have a background in this. Some people do, some people don't. These skill sets, stacking skills, it doesn't have to go in that exact order, give or take. That being
Right.
said, like, that's kinda what we did, and then we transitioned to it, and again, I don't think anyone's claiming anyone's an expert at any of this, but you do have experience after you do lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of them, and I'll tell you firsthand that a big mistake that a lot of lenders have is they grow too fast, too big, too fast, and, we try to keep things slow and steady. Our first commercial deal, we've been in this business almost 20 years. We probably didn't do our first commercial deal till year 5 or year 6. And, like, it's just now, decade later, a good book of our business, a good portion of our business. It took time to learn that and advance at it.
Yeah, I remember when we first did, it was probably 6 or so years ago when we did our first equity deals as like LPs or LP and GP blend. And I noticed that using the example of doing a first mortgage loan, which is the majority of what we do, like I have the whole transaction in my head. Like I know all the numbers, I know how these things work. It's like, second nature because we've done so many loans. When we started looking at equity deal, I immediately noticed I do not have this entire transaction in my head. And okay, we got to learn a new skill. And it was okay, yeah, you put in this much, and how much of this do you own? And you're protected through the ownership in this, and there's going to be a pref payment, 8 or 10% annually. Okay, and then what could we possibly see an upside based on cash flow of this building? And then over time, after we did 3, 4, 5 of them, okay, now I have my head wrapped around this, and it might not be as second nature as a loan, but I can totally see this just in my mind. And that
Yeah.
that took some time. That took some time, a few reps, but if you wanna move up the ladder in the private money world, in the, in investing type of world, you're gonna need to learn new stuff as you go up the ladder.
Yeah. And then, after that, it just becomes more advanced. Instead of doing kind of basic stuff, you do more advanced stuff. Mostly marketing, right? You become better at things. You put new systems and processes in place, and that's part of the game because what got you from 0 to $5 million is not going to get you from 5 million to 50 million. Typically in this business, we see a lot of lenders that are at like step one, which is like a few $1,000,000 deployed, and it's like, hey, I got like this real thing with real money, right? And like that's step one is to get to like the few million to 5 million deployed. That's like step one, and then step two is like get to 10 million deployed, and that's when you need a little bit of a team around you for some stuff because you'll start hating this business if you don't hire a processor really quickly, or you'll start hating this business if you don't, hire somebody to, do some keystrokes in your servicing software. And then the next big step is like, cool, I'm at 10 million. Now what? Now, and like by 10 million, like 10 to 11 million, like you're kind of staffed. You got some staff in place. You freaking scale that thing to 25 million, right? And that's where and then 25 is the next big hurdle where it's like, cool, I might only really need one more person, but to get to 20 million, 25 million up, like you need advanced strategies because there's no more like low hanging fruit. You don't have unlimited low hanging fruit deal flow anymore. A few $1,000,000 deployed, pretty simple. Between your sphere, some bars that some meetup groups, some basic stuff. But like after you get to 25 million, like it is a grind to continue to get deal flow over and over and over and over and over. And it's not just, hey, well, can we do this all local now? Maybe we got to expand to another market. Maybe we got to bring on staff and originators to help us bring in stuff. So point being is as you transition, you gotta have to you have to start doing some more advanced strategies than the basics.
And that's what we spend our time on now,
Yeah.
like a day to day, what we're doing in here, besides just the regular running of the business, is spending our time on the advanced stuff. Like our marketing level is advanced and we are working on new, content type campaigns or paid traffic, or how are these platforms changing? And we got to keep up with them, right? What's converting now? What's working well now? And then on the finance side too, like we have built this machine. We have a great team helping us run it, right? Software in place, all those boxes are checked. How can we turn it into some more cash? How can we turn it into a better bottom line? How we're using our equity that we're putting into deals. Like, do we need to involve some kind of debt? Like, and on the tax side too, working with CPA tax law changes. Okay, new administration comes in, tax stuff's different. How are we doing that now in terms of on the entity level and writing off that 199A, and then some personal stuff changes, and do we need to buy some assets to offset some of this active income, and then just constantly evolving and developing our game and being as good at this business as we can. I mean, that's one of the great things about being fortunate and being able to run this company for so many years, going on 20 years, is that we've just tried to get really, really, really good at this thing and the skills that come along with it, right? Like if we were trying to start in a new industry once every 5 years, we wouldn't have enough time to get that advanced if we were about to move on to another industry X amount of years later. So a lot of it's, a longevity thing and just staying in the game for a long time, stacking those skills, getting better at what you're doing with the goal of having the bottom line that you want, assets, also lifestyle and everything else. So that's our story on stacking skills. Hopefully you had some good takeaways there. Like I mentioned before, we might have spot left at our mastermind meeting coming up here in Maryland in June. To learn more, go to hardmoneymastermind.com, click on live events. And even if we're full for this one, talk to Dave about coming to the next one.
Thank you for joining us on this Private Lenders Podcast episode. Please note that opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, financial, and accounting professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we would appreciate it if you could spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 community for all private and hard money lenders.